Don Mazzella here for Small Business Digest. We have with us the president of DHL Express, Greg Hewitt. They've got an interesting new study, but I, for one, will also want to talk about DHL in general because let's face it, logistics is the key to success in today's world. But first, Greg, welcome to the program.
Don, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Okay, Greg, as we ask all our guests, tell us a little bit about yourself personally, then a little bit about your company.
Okay, great, Don. Well, my name, as you said, is Greg Hewitt, and I'm the CEO for DHL Express in the United States. I've been with DHL coming up on 29 years now, so I've spent a lot of time growing up in the business. I'm a Canadian. I started my career back in 1993 up in Toronto, Canada, and grew up largely on the sales side of the organization for many years. I've done stints in the United States and Europe with DHL. That's what got me moving around. I was here during the difficult times in the United States in 08, 09, when DHL was going through a transformation and coming out of the domestic business. I spent some time in Europe while we were doing moving out of domestic and similar markets up in the Nordics and making some changes in the UK and France, helped out there. And then really got my big break, I'll say, when we found a buyer for the Canadian domestic business back in 2011. And I was able to come back from Europe and leverage the experience I'd had in the US and Canada to lead the project to sell that domestic business and separate the domestic and international businesses. And what came out of that after that deal went through, I got my first chance at general management, and I became the CEO of DHL Express in Canada, the new international only model, which is similar to here in the US. And I did that for 3 years before I moved down here to the United States. Took on a VP general management role in the Northeast, lived up in the New York area, and got to know the US business again as it had grown since I'd been here in 08, 09. And I was lucky enough to become the CEO here at the beginning of 2016. So a lot of years with DHL. Personally, I live in Delray Beach, Florida with my wife, twin girls, and 2 dogs. And I always just consider it lucky. I found a company that there's a lot from the Northeast US and Canada that become snowbirds when they retire. I just found a company that had its headquarters for the US and the Americas down in Florida. I got an early start on that when DHL moved me down here. I love it in South Florida, and I love working for DHL. It's a great company, been really good to me over the almost 29 years I've been here.
Well, I'm going to ask you, I'm a little confused. The DHL Express, is it just for international or is it also domestic? Can you tell us a little bit of where you focus and how a small business would use it?
Sure. I think actually probably to start, even before the domestic and international, I think it's important to understand that DHL as a brand has a number of business units as part of Deutsche Post DHL. We're owned by Deutsche Post, which is a big German company that does the post office, which is privatized in Germany, but has under the DHL banner business units for e-commerce solutions, which is kind of what you would have thought as the old mail consolidation products that does a domestic service in the US. It has a global forwarding division, which is what you think of as air and ocean cargo, so larger sized product internationally. We've got a supply chain organization, which would be contract logistics, 3PL, 4PL solutions for companies that operates around the globe. And then the division I work within is Express, and that would be your time definite international express moves. And that's probably where most small businesses would come into play in moving smaller orders, samples and prototypes. And certainly one of the big things, as consumers around the globe have seen over the last few years, when you go online as a consumer and you're buying goods, quite often it's an express carrier like ourselves that brings that to that final mile and delivers it to your doorstep. So for me in the United States, the express business is about 10,000 employees working out of more than 110 facilities to facilitate deliveries coming inbound from around the world every day and picking up and exporting material. So it is an international model here in the United States. There are some markets around the globe where we still offer a domestic solution as well. A good example would be just south of us in Mexico. Not only do we do time definite international, but we also do time definite domestic. But here in the US and in Canada, like I referenced, we're an international only express carrier. So that's how I fit into the puzzle of the much larger organization.
Okay, if I may go a little further and ask this question. Now, there's FedEx, there's UPS, there's a world out there. Why would what is the advantage of using DHL over, say, like the FedEx, which I can walk just about any place to?
Well, I think, Don, my competitors in particular, those who wear purple and brown, have a really strong infrastructure within the United States that services largely the domestic market. I think we were the pioneers and the leaders globally, establishing ourselves around the world, and where our largest market shares and density and capability, Europe, Asia, Africa, emerging markets in the Middle East, all through Latin America, we are what you might think of here in the US as FedEx or UPS. We are the big player with the dominant market share, what I believe is the greater infrastructure and capability. So a lot of small businesses like to leverage our capability either to help them with their supply chain, get things from their vendors picked up around the world and brought into the US, where they do kind of some work on it and then sell to a domestic market. Or if you're a small business that's selling to consumers around the world, it's really nice to have that tie-in to a very reputable and recognized brand. And we are that recognized and reputable brand around the world. That's the piece that we fit. And it's interesting, despite their size and strength, the US is such an important market. It's still our number one trade lane for DHL inbound because of the importance of the economy here. And quite often we talk about it, that international, it's who we are, it's our DNA, it's who we've been since our beginning in 1969. It's not just a product or a service. And although my competitors are very strong and they've got good infrastructure and capability around the world, we have that strength and that notoriety around the world.
Okay, all right. I have more questions, but let's get to you have a survey that I found interesting, and I know our audience will as well. So can you give us some of the highlights?
Yeah, I think one of the things we did really two. We did a white paper on e-commerce growth, and we did a survey of small businesses in the US. I think a little bit more than 1,000 respondents, and we got some interesting findings that came out of it. I think there were questions whether the pandemic drove e-commerce buying, and with the pandemic starting to, as we thought, come towards an end with vaccines coming out, economies reopening, businesses reopening, maybe there would be a change in that buying behavior. The study clearly said people are not expecting the buying behaviors and trends to change. That some have said that e-commerce has moved forward 5 to 7 years in terms of buying behavior because of the pandemic. This study seemed to say that's what people feel, that things are not going to go back, that there's going to continue to be strong growth. I think 47% of the respondents saw year over year increases and called for continued increases in 2021, even over very big numbers in 2020. So e-commerce growth is here and it's not slowing down. I think there's been a lot of questions about the relationship with China and the importance of Asia, and with commercial air lift limited because of the pandemic, there was some question on, would there still be a dependence? Would things shift away from Asia? And I think what the study told us is 39% of the respondents still said that Asia and China are their top priority through the balance of 2021, that's still very critical to their supply chain. It's where a lot of their vendors are, and they'll continue to be a top trade lane. The other thing that we found that was interesting is there was a lot of talk about the new USMCA deal last year, and would that change and allow for greater flow and trade, particularly in e-commerce between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. An overwhelming majority of the respondents, say 88%, I think was the figure, had said that they didn't see any change. There wasn't a big change in trade with Canada or Mexico. I don't think that's a question of them saying there isn't, that it's bad. It's just that it hasn't changed, that I don't think there was significant enough changes in de minimis values that would have meant those borders opened wide and stimulated more growth. So I think that was an interesting observation. And I guess that what most were still saying as well is that we're not through COVID-19, that it still continues to have a big impact on supply chain, whether that is continued challenges around the cost and availability of capacity in the air, on the ocean, and on the ground in key markets, whether that's that not all businesses have been able to weather the storm, and maybe there are fewer vendors that you can go to with that level of reliability, that there is still that concern over COVID as we go through 2021. And that's why logistics and the supply chain is so critical. People have recognized the need that if they're going to make a commitment to customers and to their business, they need to have a means to bring those to market. And that means in a lot of cases, they are relying on more express options and getting product in the most reliable fashion into them. And I think one that we were a little surprised in, because we've certainly in my business seen the challenge to attract great people, and we've been growing. COVID did not slow us down. People were using express carriers more than ever before. The rise in e-commerce meant that I was consistently adding people and infrastructure to my setup. So we saw staffing as a big challenge, and we were interested that half of the respondents did not believe that staffing was going to be their big overall biggest challenge. 30% did say that finding the quality of staff was an issue, but we thought that number would be higher, because for me, that's one of my biggest challenges coming through COVID. So those were some of the highlights in the survey.
Okay, I'd like to go back a little bit and okay, I'm a small business, and one of the things we've seen over the last 10 years is small businesses have expanded their territories, their selling territories considerably, and now we're ordering from overseas to deliver individually to, and individuals are and companies are doing overseas. I guess my question is, what is DHL and the other freight people doing to give smaller companies the pricing that you're giving the Amazons of this world. Obviously, not as much, but the biggest problem in distribution in our surveys is the cost of distribution. Um, would you care to talk about that?
Well, I think, I mean, like anything else, and like any business, we all have to make a margin. We all have to make a
Yes.
profit. That's a foundation to success. So I
Yeah.
think, right, historically, volume in our industry has driven discount, which means the more business that you can bring to us, the better discount and pricing you could have, which then ideally improves your margin and gives you access. I think some of what we've been doing maybe differently over the last few years is we have been working in partnership with maybe platforms that small businesses use, like a Shopify as an example, who then through their technology and their platforms pass on to a marketplace access to our services at a discounted rate. We certainly are working with fulfillment houses and offering anybody who's helping small businesses consolidate and grow and do a piece of their supply chain. We'll do partnership deals in those areas. And then we've been expanding our retail footprint and trying to keep our pricing attractive for even the smallest business owner to have greater access to international markets. And I think one of the things I've always looked at is if we have the greatest infrastructure and capability globally, there is a balance that must be struck between giving access to that great quality and capability with recognizing when you have great infrastructure, you should have a unit cost advantage, and trying to make sure we pass that on to small businesses so that we can encourage growth. I think that would probably be the one mindset shift that I've seen over the last 5 years in my business. Was at one point it was you had to come to us with a huge amount of volume to get a discount. I think what we've seen over the past 5 years plus is companies that start small can become very big very fast. And so I think we're a little bit more open if the idea is right, if the product is right, if the platform and the technology is there to reach the global market. We do our best to set those companies up with a winning platform to grow into those markets. So we don't make it cost prohibitive to get in. We still have to respect that those that have come before and have larger businesses may command a deeper discount, but maybe the gap between those isn't quite as big as maybe businesses found at one point. That would be one change.
It's a good change. Have you ever thought of being a consolidator yourself?
Well, I think instead of saying that we would be the consolidator, what I would tend to do is try to leverage the other business units that Deutsche Post DHL has or under the DHL umbrella. So if somebody's looking to build out their capability from a warehousing standpoint, I'd connect them with my team on the supply chain side to see if there was a good contract logistics solution. As a company's looking for a more robust supply chain and needs to move as they grow bigger sized or larger orders in at a lower, maybe at a lower price, I work with our global forwarding arm to provide them that air and ocean quote that allows to complement our kind of faster, more fixed network deliveries that come at a premium but are designed around a little bit smaller size. And then probably the best case of it is our e-com solution team here in the United States, who leverages a really strong relationship with the USPS. We often go in and talk to small businesses and e-tailers about offering that domestic portfolio and service that they offer as a complement to our international fast and speed one, and we work together. So I don't we don't necessarily do it within DHL Express, but within the family of companies, we have that more robust capability. And I think the other side to it is we're constantly working on our web-based technologies to make sure that they're cutting edge, and that our XML PI and APIs can plug and play on a very wide array of platforms and marketplaces, so that as business evolves and as technology evolves, people can tap into what we do, which is that capability of the physical network around the world, and the experts in customs clearance and capability have the platform or the IT platform to plug in to it. So there's constant investment there too.
Well, we've gotten somewhat away from this. Are there other parts of the survey you want to share with our audience?
Well, I think the white paper that we did, which was titled "The Ultimate B2B E-commerce Guide: Tradition is Out, Digital is In," that survey focused on something new that we see emerging as a trend in e-commerce, which is very relevant to small business. And that is that moving forward, historically, we've thought of e-commerce as very much a business selling to a consumer direct online. And I think what this study predicted was that 80% of business to business sales interactions between suppliers and professional buyers will take place on digital channels in the future. And I think that's probably this step back through COVID-19 that people had, was why is there a difference between a business to business sale and a business to consumer? All buyers or consumers, whether they're doing it for a company or for themselves, are preferring this interaction on a digital footprint, and like the ease and having access to all of that information on their system, and not having to necessarily physically meet with or call an individual to put an order in. That more and more of the people doing the buying are tech savvy, that they're more comfortable working in a digital environment. And so all of us need to adapt and make sure that our platforms, our systems, and of course our infrastructure and network are there to handle that new emerging trend. And certainly what we've seen to start 2021 is not only has our business continued to see growth in the business to consumer traditional e-commerce industry and field, but we've seen a resurgence in growth in traditional industries like the automotive, engineering and manufacturing, and high tech markets, particularly with this shortage of semiconductors and wanting to get that product moved in and available for manufacturing here in the United States. And a lot of those transactions are happening in an online environment and being booked that way. So I think we're expecting our total B2C volumes to increase. They increased by about 40% in 2020. I think it'll be a little bit less than that this year, but we're projecting that more and more of those will be done in what I would call an online environment as the world evolves.
That's fascinating. Does that mean that the role of the distributor will have to change?
Well, I think that's a really good observation, Don. And I think that's if I were sitting and just reflecting on it, I think that's one of the questions that companies are asking. What is the value that the distributor brings? Historically, you've thought of that as they have relationships on the ground in the countries they're representing you. They're a primary sales channel often for you, and you would pay a premium to leverage them. They often also have tax licenses and infrastructure to house inventory and such. So they play a number of roles. As businesses become more comfortable with procurement being done online, the question is going to be, do I need a distributor? Or can my technology, my platform, maybe mirror like a lot of really good e-tail sites have done, and enablers like a great example would be Globally, a partner of ours and a business we have a stake in. People who've been able to make a website be very localized in terms of language, in terms of currency, in terms of payment methodology, in terms of tax and FX rating. They've done a good job at making businesses look local, even when they're not. And if they can do that for an e-tailer so that a consumer can buy in that fashion, why can't that same technology work in a business to business frame? And then the question is, well, what role does the distributor play, and how much margin are you giving to that distributor versus what you would have to pay to make sure your technology, your platform was capable? And I think that's where we're going to see a bit of an evolution and a change over the next few years as businesses question that, as those relationships come up. And the question is, could we do this ourselves? And do we need that, or can we leverage it? I think it'll be interesting to watch, and we're preparing on both sides. We have great capability and infrastructure on the ground to support any entity within the countries around the world, including experts in customs clearance and local laws and local capability. We've got this network of planes and trucks that connect around the globe, but we're recognizing that also very critical is having the IT platforms and backbones to tie into the systems that allow for those seamless transactions. Some of those we work on and we build ourselves. Some of them we work with partners and link into and tie into those to best meet the market demands.
Where can people find this study if they want to get a copy?
If you go to www.dhl.com and just search on that main site for the Ultimate B2B E-commerce Guide, Tradition is out, Digital is in, or DHL White Papers, there'll be links to those that you can download, or just put in U.S. SME Customer Survey. It's there. And of course, Don, I'll make sure that my PR team, who takes good care of me, sends over that link so you can share it with viewers as well.
All right. We have just about a minute left. What would you like to leave our audience with?
I think what I'd leave them with, Don, is encouragement. The importance of small business owners for the U.S. economy is critical. And what I want, and our company wants more than anything else, is to help those small business owners with an idea of wanting to bring their product or their service to consumers around the globe. We're there to help. You don't have to be the expert in clearance and currency and capability. We'll help bring it there. Reach out to us and ask for our help. We want to help you grow. And don't underestimate the size and value of an international market. Don't get seduced and just stay local. Go global, go international, and ideally reach out to your friends at DHL to help you do that.
Greg Hewitt, thank you very much